Welcome to our wisdom workshop this month of January. We are in 2025 officially, all the way in, it feels like. And I'm very excited. I've missed Sue a lot um, to chat and to hear Sue's perspective on the themes for this year. And something that we both kind of agree on, it's not predicting the future in any way. It's kind of just setting out what the planets might be showing us in their movement as themes, because I think we're in for more of a ride than we have been. How are you, Sue?
Actually, I'm surprisingly good. All I can say is I'm curious.
That's good. That's good.
I'm very curious how things are playing out at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Curious is a good one because
Yeah,
there's movement in that,
yeah.
and seeking. Um, and it's a packed year. There's interesting themes, interesting movements, new things coming. But I'm going to leave you, our expert, to tell us
Well,
more.
I'm not an expert, but I would never say that about being an astrologer. But
Yeah,
I'm curious, and that makes me want to find out more and
that's it.
explore it. So I think the big thing about 2025, it's a big shift of energy happening this year, purely because in January, and it's happened already, the lunar nodes, the north node and the south node, the north node moves into Pisces. Pisces is very highlighted at the moment, and it will be certainly until after April because there's a big stellium forming in Pisces around about April. But I'll come back to that. Then we've got Neptune. Neptune that dissolves everything, but also is the manifestation of our hopes and our dreams. And I always think he's that sort of the sense of the connected with the divine. I always feel that that's a possibility with Neptune. But the lower aspect of Neptune, which I think is really important to consider, is it can be uh, chaotic, or there can be deceit going on, or stuff that just isn't true, but there's a kind of mask over it. So there's always two aspects of any planetary, the higher aspect, and then there's the lower one. And it's about which calls us, what is calling us. And Neptune moves in March into the fiery sign of Aries. I think that's going to be a really interesting shift because he's been wandering about in his own sign of Pisces. So there's been a lot of nebulous stuff going on, maybe not a lot of clarity. But when I think Neptune moves into Aries, I think there's going to be a kind of like a fireball of kind of spiritual calling, or wanting to step out more, or wanting to sort of work with the higher knowledge. I always feel like Neptune enables us to to dream, but to bring, I think with the fire going on in Aries, there is a sort of pioneering spirit going on. It could be that a lot more kind of spiritual gurus come to the fore. It could be, whether they're true or not, we don't. I think we have to really trust our own intuition on who we're called to listen to. But I was listening to Dan Waits today, talking about this, and I think I just feel we need to become spiritual warriors, and that is Neptune in Aries, and but our own spiritual warriors. So that big energy is happening as well. Then we have Saturn moving in very quickly on the back of Neptune moving into Aries in March. We have Saturn moving into Aries in May. Saturn is the manifester. It makes us grow up. It makes us take responsibility. And it's going to be very close to Neptune for the next year until they go absolutely conjunct. I think that's very early 2026. So I don't know, but something's going to go on about spiritual truth. What is the truth and what isn't? That's how, and people kind of fighting for the truth. I think that's going to be part of the shift of consciousness. Then we have Jupiter in June. Jupiter is going to be moving into Cancer. So at the moment, he's been expanding the oh gosh, the Gemini energy of, and I always think when Jupiter's in Gemini, you never quite know what's been said is the truth. It likes to exaggerate a lot, especially in Gemini. And there's a lot being said, isn't there, out in the world? And what do you trust that's true? Lots of stories, lots of stuff going on, lots and lots and lots of information. So I think, again, this word for me is discernment. How do we become much more discerning about what we're listening to, who we're listening to, and what we're exposing ourselves to? And I think that's when the higher call of Neptune can, you know, if we're going to the higher aspect of Neptune, it's about connecting with the truth of, well, kind of universal truth. I mean, I don't know, but this is what I feel anyway. And then in July, we have Uranus moving from Taurus, the earth sign of Taurus, which has been very money orientated, very climate orientated, and it's moving into Gemini. So Uranus in Gemini, whoa, if you think it's been a bit pokey with Jupiter in Gemini, I think Uranus and Gemini, I think it's going to be an explosion of ideas, explosion of new ways of looking at things, of technology, of different ways of communicating. We're talking about the themes of fire and air. And hopefully Jupiter in Cancer, when he moves into Cancer, Cancer's water, and Cancer's the home, and Jupiter's exalted in Cancer. So there is this sense of kind of protection as well. But that's what that's the main shifts of this year. So it's big shifts from earth and water signs into predominantly fire and air. Fire, inspiration, battles out there, pioneering energy, and the air signs are to do with communication, technology, the future. It's very future orientated. So we'll just have to see how all of that pans out. And if you think things have speeded up recently, you wait. It's going to be a fast and furious year this year because it's fire and air. Now, all of this is set against the backdrop of Pluto settling into Aquarius, and there's been a lot spoken about that, so I don't want to go over old ground again. But Aquarius is it's air, another air sign, so it is about, and Aquarius is all about futuristic. It's about technology, new ideas, but it's also about humanitarianism. And I've been listening to Greg Braden. I don't know if you've been listening to him, Michelle, but he's very much championing this sort of sense that we need to fight for our humanity because we could allow technology to take over our lives and actually run it for us. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff being talked about here. And it's very interesting, I think, that all of this is happening and manifesting. And we talked about this just before we came online. The whole UFO thing, the whole drone thing that nobody can say what they are, really? I there's a mystery. There's there's something we don't know, or we haven't got the story of. We are not being told. And then there's the fires in LA. I found that really synchronistic, that they were all happening around the same time. And then, of course, we've just had Donald Trump yesterday, inauguration, when Pluto was, well, the sun became conjunct Pluto. That's not an unusual conjunction. It happens every year because the sun goes round the zodiac every year and meets up with Pluto every year. But what is different, it happened on the day of the inauguration. So I don't know what you think, Michelle, but I am curious how this is playing out. What do you think?
Well, I wonder, I mean, everything's moving except for Pluto. We've talked about Pluto quite a
He
lot.
has just moved and he's only
Yeah.
stepping in.
Oh,
So,
and this humanity aspect, I think we kind of touched on it just before we came on as well. There's a split as to, for me at least, as to are we connecting more to humanity because of the contrast with all this movement towards um, artificial intelligence or technology or automation, almost like the human in us is fighting back as to I need to move in my body to be in this world. Um,
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
mm,
There's something going on for me that is clouded in mystery. And I was saying to Michelle just before we came on, it almost feels, and I don't know if anybody else feels like this, that we're entering into Philip Pullman's world. And where there was this sort of renting of the veils in the story. And I don't know. I don't know if anybody else feels like that. Put it in the chat if you do, but I just feel there is something that's not right. And we are now stepping into, and we're always stepping into uncharted territory. Always, there's always change.
yeah.
There's been change going on since we walked out of the caves and before that.
Mm,
So it isn't this sort of, oh my God, there's more change going on. I don't feel that, but I just feel we are, the world that we knew, the world that I was born into is no longer there for me. There is a sense of it's done, it's finished, it's gone. And I don't even necessarily know what that means.
yeah. Do you also feel that there's a pull towards the old ways, the ancient wisdom almost, that inherentness, away from these, you mentioned spiritual gurus or, kind of Neptune moving into Aries, that there might be some shift there. And I feel that humanity has become tired of following,
Yeah.
listening to being deceived,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or the veils are thick. We don't
Mm,
know the truth. Well, it's interesting because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, obviously, the
yeah,
futuristic, the
yeah.
technology, the AI, the going out in the world, the going to the Mars. But it's also ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is very deeply attached to tradition and the old ways, the golden old ways.
Mm,
I feel like this is really coming together and being embodied by Pluto, the Lord of ordeals and transformations, sitting in Aquarius with
mm,
these two very strong, powerful planets who are very opposite. One, the old one, Saturn's tradition, time, Cronus time. Uranus, boom, we're off to Mars. So
mm,
how this is going to play out, the dream of the golden time, the dream of what it was. And no, we
yeah.
don't want that anymore. We want to go, and we have to evolve into something else.
Mm,
This is 20 years we've got to work this out. And I think this is going to come down to personal, how you personally feel it sits well with you.
Yeah.
Because the past is done, but it's also this yearning for the past. That's Saturn. And Saturn grounds us and it makes us put our 2 feet firmly on the ground. But Uranus doesn't want that. It wants something else. It wants the new. So
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. It just comes, how it's playing out. I see Donald, and I'm not, I don't want to go into politics, but
Yeah.
just in the symbology of it, there's Donald Trump, this very kind of traditional businessman, really, on many levels, and he's come up to be the president again.
Mm.
And then he was surrounded by people wanting to go to Mars. Jeff Bezos,
Zuckerberg,
the whole
Elon
lot of
Musk.
them,
Yeah.
all of them,
Mm.
massive money. I mean, in that room, probably were all the richest men in the world. Men, not women, men. So I'm curious about how that's going to play out. I'm curious about, and I mean, that's Pluto conjunct the sun.
Yeah. And
Power.
and
Talking,
what's the Uranus element there? Because
sorry?
Uranus, what's the Uranus and Taurus element there? Because Uranus is still in Taurus at the moment, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. It's beginning to go out of Taurus. Absolutely. It'll be going, it goes out in July. I
Mm.
mean, it's going to be interesting how this plays out, what laws are going to be passed about the future of the money that they're going to spend, how they're spending it. And guess what? They're not going to spend it on the planet
No, because they don't have.
at the
Well, this
moment.
is also a Pluto, yeah, Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto coming from Capricorn, that's very Capricornian, all of that stuff,
It,
all of
it
that.
is, it is, but it's futuristic.
Mm,
And I don't know. I mean, Pluto's all about power. So in the next 20 years, we are going to see an explosion of different forms of the old power and new power. And whether the new power is humanitarian or the old power is the Donald Trump and what he's doing, we don't know. But I
mm,
mean, we just don't know. But I, yeah, it's interesting times. And also at the moment, we've also got Saturn square Jupiter, which is going to be playing out until June. And that is this, it's a difficult one because Jupiter wants to expand and Saturn wants to contract. So there's a real tension playing out here. And they go exact at 1 degree Cancer and 1 degree. Jupiter goes absolutely square at 1 degree Cancer, and Saturn goes and squares, and Saturn will be at 1 degree Aries. Now, 1 degree is beginnings. It's
mm.
not endings, it's beginnings. It's 1 degree of the first degree of both the Cancer and Aries sign. I don't know, but we are
Yeah.
in such new ways of being, of expressing ourselves, and this is the whole of humanity. It isn't just one or two people. This is it, and it plays out obviously in our own charts,
Mm.
individually. So yeah, I don't know, but I just think I'm sure UFOs are going to come back. I'm big time. I think what's going to be interesting as well, I think this whole concept of 0 point energy, which Tesla created back in the yeah, I think he was around about 1800s, 1900s. I think it is said that he created 0 point energy, which meant he was creating energy that could be free. And when he died, apparently, the FBI went into his house and cleared it out, and there was nothing left, and any of his papers or experiments just gone. They must be somewhere, and it is said, and I don't know, that he did in fact manage to. He has created free. He did create free energy, and if that was to be exposed, then that would radically change the whole of how we understand life to be.
And isn't that the big theme as well? I think there's a lot of talk around 2025, 2026, 2027, moving into things that we have no idea of.
Yes,
Nicole was saying here in the chat that there seems to be a distinct difference in those that are gravitating to the more old world ways versus the techno fundies, where
yes.
Maria is saying that the old ways aren't all good though, which is
No,
this is the
absolutely
thing, and
not.
this is what drives this
Yeah,
move.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and I do think that truth is going to be what our truth is going to be absolutely paramount, and we're going to question authority. Because
Mm,
if these things, for instance, the whole Tesla thing does come out, then we've been lied to consistently. And we have lived in a world that we didn't need to live in and suffered in it. So
yeah.
I don't know. And it would mean the end of capitalism, for example, because it's all built on energy. So I don't know, but I just think we're in this time of massive transition, and we haven't got at the moment a Hollywood hero to save us.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We need to save ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And as a collective, and I think
yes.
this is
Oh,
the
yes,
carrying that theme over from last year. We spoke about that quite a bit as to finding your individuality within your tribe so that
yeah,
we can do this together on our own
definitely.
together kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I do see people coming together in communities going, well, we've had enough of central government. We actually want to, I can really, that's very Pluto in Aquarius. We
Mm,
want our own autonomy. We want to have self-governing, smaller organizations. I can see that happening.
mm,
It has been foretold, and I don't know if this is going to happen, that America might divide up in,
mm,
it may not end up as America as we know it. Um, there's other countries, I think, as well around the world that also facing that sort of rebellion from the people going, no, we're done. We
yeah.
want this top down. We really want to return to this sort of sense of power to the local people. We need
Yeah.
to on our own lookout. So I'm interested in that. I think um, I think what gives me, I don't know if the hope, what does it give me? It gives me freedom to breathe. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And the second half of the year is shaped by the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto minor triangle, which it kind of could indicate a new kind, a sense of renaissance, because the triangles and trines, it's a trine, they indicate a flow rather than a challenge. But we're talking about the outer planets, so this is global. This
Mm,
is a massive this is a massive coming together of Uranus, the god of change and shocks and whatever, coming together with Neptune. We've discussed Neptune, which is to do with our dreams and yearnings, and then Pluto to do with transformation. And I think it may manifest as sudden or trines are positive.
mm,
They've got a flow to them. Positive changes around power and control, Pluto. Um, so, but this will be playing out worldwide because they are the transpersonal planets. They're not the personal planets. So I'm going to be interested about that. And I think I do listen to Dan Waits because I think he's a voice of reason, and he runs the World Astrology Report. So if you want to find out more about that, I would suggest that you listen to him. But I think he's very good about how he hasn't got everything right, I have to say. He did not get Donald Trump right. He thought Kamala Harris was going to win. But anyway, we all make mistakes, or, we read things wrong. So I do think there is a possibility of the changing face of our world, and how we perceive power. Because I think Neptune will kind of dissolve the sharp edge of Pluto.
Yeah.
Uranus will bring in sudden insights that we may not, and then the three of them are working together. That's a powerful combination.
And reality,
Hmm?
reality, how we perceive reality. I hear a lot of talk about dimensional kind of aspects that we might get more insight into over the next year or so.
I think so. I
Mm,
mean, we've just got to go with the flow.
mm,
I think to try and predict anything, every time I've ever tried to predict something, it doesn't happen the way I predicted it. It happens, but not necessarily in the way I predicted it.
yeah.
Something will manifest.
Mm.
And the theme is global change. No, I don't want to use the word change. Global, what's another word?
Transformation.
Yes, or shift,
Yeah.
or realignment.
Realignment.
Nicole
Yes.
said realignment. I like that, Nicole.
Yeah.
Yes, something like that. I think we need to ban the word change, because we're always changing. But I
Yeah.
think there is an alignment or something happening that may take us by surprise because Uranus is involved. Yeah.
And this is a big theme this year, isn't it?
Oh
Kind of
God,
the
second half
big
of the year.
planet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the other big thing that's happening as well, actually, as we speak, or it's just happened,
Yeah.
is the nodal shift into the North Node into Pisces. So that's going to be bringing more of an emphasis into envisioning what service, compassion, and cooperation mean. That's Pisces. Pisces is also victim consciousness, so we've got to be very careful around that. We can be the saver, but then we feel pissed off because we were saving everyone. And what about us? So that can throw us into that sort of victim, persecutor, rescuer triangle. But I think it's, again, this sense of the higher aspect of that nodal shift, the North Node into Pisces it's North Node calls us. It calls us out from the past. And we need that energy of Virgo to give us that sort of sense of structure, but not to be run by the details anymore or the structure. It's about entering into a real sense of what is my truth for me. And I think a lot of people will be called to a much more spiritual life, a much more, whatever that means to them.
Yeah.
Calling,
Which
yearning.
intuition
Yeah,
is for me something that people are connecting a lot more with and
yes,
realizing the power
absolutely.
that they have already
Yeah.
in themselves.
So I think it's obviously all going in the right direction. Going in a direction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. So so when Saturn joins, we talked about Saturn joining Neptune in Aries, and that's on the 25th of May 2025. It's something to do with visions and goals. And I think then they go back again into Pisces just for a bit before they settle, but they will kind of, it's going to be a subtle taste of what's to come in 2026 when they are exactly conjunct at 0 degrees Aries. So there will be a kind of, it's a bit like when Pluto moved into Aquarius. We had that kind of taster of what was to come. So I would say to everyone, just pay attention and just listen to your intuition. See where 0 degrees Aries is in your chart. See what house Pisces falls in, because that will be highlighted for you. There will be a sense of being called to experience the theme of that house, or things manifesting in that theme. So yes, let me just see, we've talked about that. Right. Yeah. In October, so I feel like the second half of the year, because we're talking about this beautiful semi-trine,
Mm.
the planets, the transpersonal planets. In October, December, Jupiter forms a trine with both Saturn and Neptune. So I think this is a really beautiful aspect where the abundance of Jupiter meets the sort of nebulous magic, the dreamlike state of Neptune, but it's anchored in this sort of stability and common sense of Saturn. Right, let's see what we can manifest here. So it isn't all, it's kind of like a major shift, as Nicole was saying, a major realignment.
Yeah.
And we just have to be very sensitive to that and see how it plays out in our life, because it will. We will all experience this personally. Yes. Let me just have a think on I mean, there's a few retrograde Mercuries. I never get really excited about retrograde Mercury, because I think, well, it goes retrograde a lot. And personally, being an Aquarian, I don't really I kind of don't worry about that. Now, other people do. If you've got a lot of, if you've got a very mercurial chart, which means that you could be a Gemini, you could be a Virgo, or you could have that on your ascendant, or a very oh, Nicole's saying snap and Aquarian, cool. You may be much more attuned, or yeah, you might be much more attuned to the Mercury retrogrades, but I'm not going to go into them particularly at the moment.
Can
So
I just pull you back quickly to where we are now with these bigger planets, these seven? Yes. So today specifically, and then
oh,
yeah.
well, today is really interesting because, well, it's we still have Pluto conjunct the Sun.
Mm.
We have, and what I love today is this beautiful alignment. I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but there is a beautiful alignment happening today at 7 o'clock. It's at its height. So we have Mars in the east. You can see this with your eyes. I've been watching them coming together.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. We have Mars, we have Jupiter, which is just north of Orion's belt. It's all on the ecliptic, which is the path of the imaginary path of the sun. Then we have beautiful Venus, and she's so bright in the sky. You can't ignore her. She's so lovely. And then we have Saturn, and Saturn's more to the west, more to the southwest, and more on the it's lower down than Venus, but you can see them in alignment. Now but also if you have a telescope, and a good one, you can also see, as part of this incredible alignment, you'll also be able to see Uranus and Neptune. I mean, they're millions of miles out into the into deep space. But all of this is going on. Of course, these are all the personal planets. I mean, it's just a beautiful cosmological alignment, and you can make of it what you want. But it's very I think it's bringing us back to the awe of, oh my God, there's more than just me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and I'd be very interesting to see if anybody else has experienced this. I had this is very Neptune on my IC, by the way, my the lowest part of my chart. But I was I suddenly saw that that this world literally was exactly what Shakespeare said. It was just this stage, and we make our entrance and exits, and we just think we're so important, but we're not. It's not a game. It's more than a game. It's not an illusion. It's more than an illusion. But I saw how we just got lost in ourselves. And these alignments of planets give us the opportunity to look up and go, oh, wow,
Yeah.
there is more. There's a lot more than just my life, your life, anyone's life. And I'm a great fan of bringing back this concept of wonder and awe. So we start looking up rather than just looking down and getting
Well,
lost.
and I mean, this is a big theme. It's the contrast in this show that we're watching. I mean,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
all these little TikTok being a social media platform. We were absorbed in this drama that has got, it doesn't even affect us, you know, but to then be able to detach and go, that's just a show. That's just all made up to grab our attention into something that isn't even ours.
Well, it's sort of, I suddenly thought, it's so interesting how humanity has created this crazy life, this
Mm.
Cronus life, this TikTok life, this life run by the clock. And we're not meant to live like that. Now, it's very easy for me to say because I'm very fortunate to be able to live how I live, and I don't live life by the clock. But I just feel like if it's so many people are on the hamster wheel and don't understand it, and that's because it's basic survival. If I fall off the hamster wheel, I won't have any money and all of this will come away, and hanging on, it's like hanging on with to grim life. Don't change. I don't want anything to change because if it changes, everything's going to change. I don't want to change. And it I love the concept of Kairos time. And Kairos time is this the time of moment, the time of the mystical, magical moment that brings back something else and reminds us that we're part of a living cosmos. And Kairos time brings us synchronicities, and which you go, how did that happen? How did I end up sitting next to that person and they changed my life? Or that book fell off and that's happened to me. A
Yeah.
book fell on my head, exactly what I needed at the time I needed. I'll never forget that. And I did not make that up. And I'm sure lots of us have had those experiences. And I feel like these alignments of planets are here if we choose to attune to them, to say, oh, yes, I remember. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, that
what
is
it
beautifully
should
put.
mean.
It's a yearning for home.
And it's yeah.
Yearning for what home is. The Welsh have this beautiful word. I don't know if anybody else is Welsh listening to this, but and I hope I'm not murdering the language, but it's hireth. And hireth describes for a Welshman the yearning for the Welsh hills. When he's away from them, that yearning of home, that yearning for that homesickness.
Mm.
And for me, I use hireth to describe my yearning for home, which is the cosmos, there's something greater. I can call it God if I want to. I can call it consciousness if I want to. But it is not just, it's more than my physical home, and it's more than being in this physical body. It's a yearning for something. And it's so difficult to find it on this I don't think it is either. I think we're just personally, I think we're just passing through, and we're here to learn. And this is really taking that beautiful Aboriginal saying, we're here to learn and to grow, and then to return home. And home is not here. Home is somewhere else. Now, we don't know where that somewhere else is, and it might be
believe
different
we
for
come
each one
back.
of us.
Yeah.
But I think that
it's-
sort of gives you a bit of, oh, maybe I don't have to do all this horrible hard work this lifetime. But then I asked,
Nicole asked an interesting question, which I'm not sure as to how often does the alignment, the planets align like they are at the moment.
oh, not often.
Hmm.
No, this is quite an unusual alignment. That's why people are getting quite hot under the collar about it.
Yeah.
It's going to be hanging around for quite a while, because in April there is this big stellium in Pisces. So I think there is going to be a real call for all of us globally. I think the fires are a massive wake up call. We don't know how it's going to play out, but I do feel when you have such catastrophic loss, that there's two ways: you kind of give up, or you go, you walk the fire yourself, and something wakes up deep inside you, and there is massive transformation. And this is being done as a collective. It isn't just one person's house.
Yeah.
This is major collective stuff. So we don't know how that's going to play out yet.
Yeah.
Or the behaviors that were, and just don't behave. They're just not relevant anymore. We're done. We don't need to do that anymore. And maybe this is going to be playing out very strongly because of Pluto coming into Aquarius. So I can't predict what's going to happen, but I just feel consequences. We're going to have to pay for the consequence of our actions. And maybe this is the great wake-up call, is humanity is going to have to face the consequence of their actions. And each one of us individually is going to have to face the consequence of our actions. And maybe that's Curious time coming back, because Curious time asks you to take a breath and just consider your actions and the consequence of your action before you take action. And of course, that leads us back into the beautiful Native American Indian teachings, where they didn't make decisions unless they really considered 7 generations into the future.
Yeah, this came up the other day as well. Someone was talking about this, and that's true responsibility, isn't it? That's not just thinking about me. That's thinking about the space that I leave behind as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know. But it's interesting that Trump has taken in the energy of the Pluto sun into his presidency. And there's a lot of other stuff, very, very challenging stuff in his chart, particularly in April coming, particularly. And I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out. But Pluto is going to transform what power is, because it's with the sun, power. Pluto's power. Pluto is ordeals and transformation. And I think maybe at the end of the 20 years, we will be seeing a very, very different display of what power is. And maybe it really will be power to the people, because at the moment, what we're being shown, especially in the inauguration, was absolutely top-down power.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, Jackie. Masculinity. So what, because the sun is masculine as well. Well, I've listened to a beautiful conversation that you had with Alejandro, I think. But
yeah, he's cool.
What do you think about the rise of masculinity, Middle East and US, and the move of power away from women? Yeah.
Well, I think, will we survive this? Well, do you know what? We always have. We've always survived. Humanity has always survived. Life has always survived. So yes, we will survive. How we'll survive, I don't know. How the number of us who will survive, I don't know. Women, oh yes, of course. Now, okay, from what I understand, what I understand through a particular experience I had, I'll put it this way, that the universe is the universe, but it manifests in the male and the female expression on planet Earth. That's how it does. That's how it manifests. That's how it expresses itself in life. Male, female, masculine. Actually, no, not male,
Yeah,
female,
masculine, feminine.
masculine, feminine.
Mm.
So that's really important. Now, so therefore, the masculine and feminine, I will absolutely survive because it's already surviving. How it plays out, we don't know. But until we come into some form of balance between them, once again, which I think we probably have experienced in our human condition, once we come back into a balance of the masculine and the feminine, it's going to be dodgy because we'll keep fighting, and that's not what that's not what I don't think that's what we're here to do. I think we're here to experience this extraordinary thing called life and grow and be challenged. Absolutely. But the masculine has been demasculated.
Exactly, and that's where this balance is being pulled to this
Yes,
masculine, trying to prove its
yes,
masculinity, and
yes.
letting go of the feminine. Because even in our own psyches, if we look at Jung's work, then we have that balance of masculine and feminine, or we strive for the balance of the masculine and the feminine, and that's why we often choose partners of any gender, really, that show us the opposite so we can be in balance. My husband might be more feminine than I am in many ways, and I'm more masculine in other ways. um but I also like what Jackie was saying there, is that, and even what you're saying around the sun and Pluto and Trump. I mean, Trump is that for me, a toxic masculinity. He portrays that for me personally. um and it is quite symbolic that this is, I mean, I don't know who set the date for these things, but nothing is a coincidence, is it? um, so
It's always on
mm,
the 20th of January. Apparently it has been forever. Um, but it just so happens that synchronistically,
mm.
this Pluto was conjunct the sun.
Which conjunctions means it
They're together.
makes it bigger. Yeah.
Absolutely together.
But it also enlarges the
It's
symbolic.
potent.
Yeah.
Very, very potent. A potent energy concerned with power. Absolute power and control. Absolutely. But also Pluto is all about ordeals and transformation, death and rebirth. So something is going to happen that is going to be playing out within the next 4 years, if Trump is still president in another 4 year, within this next 4 years. But the whole presidency, that is its theme, its main theme. So it will play out. Things will transform. Things will die and be reborn. But at the moment, we don't know how. So it isn't about giving up hope, whatever that means for you. It's about being curious.
And that's where I find this beauty back again in this alignment that we are experiencing
Exactly.
at the moment. It's kind of, there's that thing, but there's this other, the stars are aligning,
They
literally.
are.
Yeah.
The planets are aligning.
The
They are.
planets. Yeah.
Yeah, the planets are. So, yeah. And I think, look up.
Mm.
Remember, we're part of a massive conscious universe, and everything that we put into the zeitgeist, the collective, every thought, every whatever we do, Put in positivity of anything that you can find. Don't feed the zeitgeist with negativity and, oh, it's all hopeless and we're all doomed. We're not doomed, actually. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're not doomed. We never have been.
Well, especially if we look at our, who am I? I'm not this vessel that I am carrying. So,
Yeah.
she can't be destroyed. There is transformation and there is movement, and how we move that in this stage, because well, I think we chose to be here in this time.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
for a reason, I would hope, because
Well,
it is all.
maybe it is to learn to hold the light. That's all our job is hold the light. So these things can play out without us being drawn into the drama of it. It's the drama which is the addiction.
Mm,
And when you embrace holding, being a light holder, you don't go down there. You just stay holding the light because there is an alternative. There really, really is to the drama that is playing out at the moment. There really is. And I don't want to go all pink glasses on this, I really don't. But I do, I really believe that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, this is why we can take messages from astrology, within these movements as to what are these things.
yeah.
I feel there's a strong theme of the divine feminine embracing the masculine in this time, because I think
So,
it's
yeah.
time.
Well, there's a beautiful eclipse coming. Obviously we're going to have 4 eclipses this year,
Mm,
but there's a particularly powerful one. Hate the word powerful, potent one. At 29 degrees Virgo, 29 degrees in astrology is the anaretic degree. It is really brings up the Virgo energy. And don't forget, Virgo is about service, purification, it's discernment, it's hugely attention to detail, but it is this health and healing, all of those, the Divine Mother. She is the Divine Mother. And that happens on the 21st of September, which happens to be dot, dot, dot. So just watch out for that and where that falls in your chart. It's actually falling on my moon. And
um,
so I'm very curious how that build up is going to happen to my moon. But if you have anything at 29 degrees Virgo or 29 degrees Pisces opposite,
mm,
or in fact 29 degrees of any of the mutable signs, that's Sagittarius or Gemini, this is going to be a very potent eclipse for you. And it's new moon eclipse. So this is about new beginnings or new things, or just see what starts to close up for you over the year that you don't want to, that things coming to an end, so that when this eclipse comes in, it's going to be interesting, interesting, interesting.
interesting.
That's my favorite word at the moment. Interesting. Yeah. And we've got some lovely new moons. 29th of January, we've got a new moon in Aquarius, which is cool. That's fast, fresh energy. It's manifesting universal truths, humanitarian stuff. So that's really nice. That's in a couple of days' time. It's got, let me see, we've got 2 lovely
We can
moons
talk about
in
them now.
February. We've got, do we want
We'll
full
talk
moon,
about them
snow
now.
moon, which is a February moon. And that is that's going to it's going to form a fixed square with Aquarius opposite the Leo moon, but it's going to be square Jupiter and Taurus. This is a fixed square, so there's going to be something really coming up about meaning and purpose. That's Jupiter.
Mm.
Stability in Taurus. So we've got some we've got some interesting stuff that we've just got to feel, go beyond it's hopeless or this is the drama, therefore it is. It isn't. It's a play. and a play has a beginning, a middle, and end. And we don't know how the play is going to end at the moment, but it will end, I promise you. It'll end in this next 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a beautiful new moon in Pisces, and that's on the 25th of Feb. So that is creating this massive Piscean stellium, which we've talked about. So it's quite an intense period over what's real or what isn't real. And it's kind of sandwiched between a very unaspected Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus. So this is Aquarius energy is going to really be strong towards the end of February. That February. I don't know whether there's going to be more scandals coming to the surface. I think there will be. I think there's going to be something happening with Trump. I do. I'm not sure about his health. I'm not predicting, but I'm interested. So we've got there's going to be a lot of constitutional changes that are going to be shocking for the next few months. And then I think things will shift again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the disruption, isn't it? There has to be disruption in this.
Has to be.
Mm.
It's got to pierce. I don't want this in our human psyche, in the collective. Yeah. I don't want this anymore. This is not for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that we can take responsibility and say, this is what I want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how to do that and to do it very differently. Absolutely. And this is where I think it will come into much more into the smaller communities, or, you know, being very protective over what being human means, and protecting. Thousands of people are taking their children out of school now and homeschooling them. Thousands of people are in vans or on the boats, families.
But the system is fighting back, though, because now there's a bill in the UK that wants to be passed that's saying that parents aren't allowed to do that anymore. So that's going to create, well, it's already
I
creating.
don't see how they can stop it.
No, no. And this is what gives me hope, I think. This is what keeps me going, is that this Pluto in Aquarius, it is not going to work. This is the time where we stand up and we say, sorry, but I have a choice.
Yeah. And also, I've got huge faith in the assisted dying bill going through.
Yeah.
It's very much Saturn in a Pisces, making the nebulous real.
Yeah.
So I'm being called more and more to write about astrology and mortality, and how we can really engage with our mortality, because I think that's also the key to, you know, I call it wear your mortality with pride.
Yeah. Yeah. And this has been your life's work, really, is around, you know, embracing mortality as part of our soul's mission. Yeah.
And to die as well as we possibly can. Yeah. To be
By
die.
like having choice in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think amongst the chaos and the rubble, there's going to be a lot of rubble in the maybe next 18 months, a lot of rubble. And then I think things will start to be, it will be a bit like, we'll see suddenly from the rubble of the fires, people starting to rebuild. And I feel
Differently?
like that. The fires of LA,
Yeah.
in the rubble, they'll start to rebuild, and we'll see that. And I feel that's going to be a major symbol for us all, through the rubble that humanity has created. We will start to rebuild.
Sue, thank you so much. That was really insightful, and always great to chat to you. Kind of gives me a little bit of context as to what's going on. Any final messages that you see kind of playing out through 2025?
Be curious. Don't go down those rabbit holes, those conspiracy rabbit holes. You're going to hear a lot of things that are not true. You're going to see lots of stuff on YouTube. It isn't true. It's not true. So just be really, really careful about what you believe and what you don't believe. and make sure that when you do believe something, the source is real. It's going to be difficult and solid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Highly, highly recommend Dan Waits as a solid astrologer, a mundane astrologer, solid astrology about what's happening in the world today. He is absolutely grounded, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's the World Astrology Report, is it? And we'll pop the link in as well.
And Penny, and I also Penny. Oh,
Thornton.
thank you, Penny Thornton, and obviously Steve Judd. I think
Yeah.
he's well.
I love Steve, yes. And Steve's bringing out his documentary.
Yeah. He is.
Yeah, so the history of
Yeah,
modern psychology, modern astrology.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you
Oh,
for joining
pleasure.
us. Thank you for anybody that's watching. And yeah, stay curious.